being a working parent, no matter what your job, what your profession, it can be really, really hard and really straining. But I can only speak from my experience as a teaching mum and how that impacted on my relationship, not only my son, but also my husband, and how that strained our relationship. And what I did in the end to improve my own well-being as well as my family's well-being. So a bit of context. When I had my son, I only went on maternity leave for 6 weeks. I went back to school for a day and a half before the summer holidays, right then the summer term, so that I could get paid across the summer holidays, because the maternity pay was rubbish. It wasn't good enough. So I only had 6 weeks with my son. I think that already had a great impact on my son and our relationship. And as he got older, he became quite needy, and that's not through no fault of his own. He became quite attached to me. Every time I left the house, he'd get upset. Most of the time, I took him with me, and I still do. It's only now that he's starting to understand that if I leave, I will be coming back. There's no issue there. So yeah, already our relationship had a negative impact as a result of me having to go back to work so early. Now, when he was a toddler, when he was little, it was easier to balance work and being a mum, because on the weekends, the holidays, he'd nap during the day, and that gave me opportunity to get on my marking, my planning, whatever I need to do for school, and get all that ready. So in that sense, it was easier. He was starting to sleep longer through the night, sleeping 12-hour nights. So I could wake up early in the morning and get some things done and not have an impact on my relationship with my son, not as much anyway. It was around the time of the COVID pandemic when my relationship with my son became even more strained, because although before this time my job was my life, I lived to work. I was working constantly, and because I wanted to build up a good reputation, I didn't want to have anything negative to impact my job, because I was worried about losing it, because it was the only income stream I had. But at this time during the COVID pandemic, it became 10 times worse. I was working constantly because I was working remotely. It felt like the job never ended. From the minute I woke up to when I went to bed, we had online meetings, I had remote teaching, I was planning between marking, uploading. I'd be working till 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, sometimes in bed. I'd still be pinging emails, still planning lessons. And my poor son, who was at home as well, of course, at that time with me, he thought, all he could think was, I'm at home, my mum's at home, we should be playing. We should be spending time together. He just wanted to play with me the whole time. And I became quite snappy, quite stressed. And it got to the point where I would open up my laptop and my son would start crying, because instantly he knew I'd be gone for a few hours. Like, I wouldn't be able to do anything with him. And that was quite upsetting. But it was hard. It was hard for me not to work, because I didn't have that distinction between work and home life. And even when we returned back to school, I was still working constantly. I'll come home, sit on the couch, and already I'm pinging emails, already I'm doing stuff on my phone for work. And my son's wanting my attention. All I'm doing is shouting at him, because I've already given the best version of myself to the kids at school, to my students at school. So the minute I come home, all my family's left with is the scraps, the worst part of me. So it was quite sad, yeah. I'd be pinging emails, doing my work as soon as I got home. I'd even be doing it while I'm cooking dinner for my son, while my son's eating dinner. Even while my son's in the bath, I'd sit on the floor in the bathroom, still working away on my phone, which was quite bad. But I was constantly working. When I went to bed at night, I was still working. I'd checking my emails. And yeah, it is my fault. I had my work emails on my phone. I had everything on my phone to do with my work, my job, because I wanted to make sure that I could get everything done. But that then had a negative impact on my family, on myself, on my husband. I wasn't spending time with my husband. My son went to bed at night and I'd still be sat there working on my phone, doing my thing. Or sometimes I just go straight to bed because I was so tired. So I wasn't really spending much time with my husband or my son. The weekends were worse. They were the worst. The weekends brought the worst out of me. I was so stressed out. I was shouting at my son. I was working constantly, marking constantly. And even when I planned my day, I'd mark for a bit and then spend some time with my son. I'm still thinking about what I need to get done for work, especially if it was a Sunday. That was worse. I'm thinking about the next day, what I need to get done for the next day, what I haven't done yet. And that just meant that the time I spent with him wasn't good quality time. I was getting stressed at him and angry at him while I'm trying to play with him and give him some of my time and give him some of me, best version of me, and I couldn't, because I'm still thinking about my job, my work, and what I still had to do, because I was so overworked and so stressed. So I snapped at him. I snapped at him a lot. It ruined the time I had with him. And I wasn't looking after myself. I wasn't putting myself first. I wasn't putting what I needed for my own well-being first. I gave everything to everybody else. And that is what impacted on my family the most, because I was giving the best version to everyone else at work, the staff, the students, the parents, everybody. So when I came home, all I had left was the worst version of me for my family. I was so tired and stressed out, I was just snapping at them. So things were always strained. Which is why when I saw a job advertised at a school that was local to my house, down the road, walking distance, I had to go for it. I had to. Because I had to think of the possible benefits. It was closer to home, so I wouldn't be stressed on the A2 trying to get to work and get back. And that also adds to the pressures. That also adds to the straining of my relationship with my son, because I was getting home so late. It could take me 45 minutes, sometimes an hour and a half, depending on how if there were accidents on the A2, how bad the traffic was. And I'd be picking him up from after school club at 5:30, 5:45. Sometimes I have to ring my husband to go get him because I couldn't get there in time. So he was seeing me even less. He might have been spending an hour and a half in the morning with me before I dropped him off at breakfast club, and then possibly 2 hours in the evening before I went to bed. So that's ridiculous. 3 hours a day I spent with my son, and even then it was strained because I was so stressed and I was snapping at him. And he didn't deserve that at all. So I had to go for this job. It was an SEN provision, SEN school. I've never taught in SEN school before. I taught in mainstream. I taught mainstream PE for 13 years. So it was a big leap, complete change. And the only experience of teaching SEN I had were in a mainstream school, in a class of 25 to 30, 32 kids. I didn't know if any of them had AHCPs. I only worked with 1 or 2 TAs over the year. I wasn't very good at directing them because I was just so used to just doing it on my own. So moving from mainstream to an SEN provision did help me a lot with my time. I got more time to do my own thing. I got more time back to spend with my son, because I wasn't planning and marking constantly and uploading things constantly into Google Classroom. Now, as a PE teacher in a mainstream school, I was doing clubs and fixtures after school 3 times a week. I had a meeting after school once or twice a week sometimes. So there were days when I didn't sit at my desk until about 4:30, 4:45 because of how busy I was. And sometimes I sit there for half an hour, 15 minutes, just try and get a bit of work done before I had to get home. But again, that adds to the strain and pressure in terms of family life and home life with my husband and my son, because I was trying to get some work done and then leave to try and pick my son up in time and then get home and cook dinner. It was constant. Now, I'm not saying that moving out of mainstream is the way to improve your work-life balance. I'm not. For me, it worked. It helped so much. And the reason I'm saying that you don't have to leave mainstream, you don't have to leave at school if you enjoy your work, if you enjoy the school, you like the kids, you like the staff, it's just the strain on your time and your relationship with your child or your family that's been affected. You don't have to leave your position, your school. What I should have done was spoken up more. Absolutely, should have spoken up more. I didn't. I kept my mouth shut because I was a people pleaser. I did everything for other people. A phone call, a text from a member of staff, because at that time I was in charge of vocational courses. Any sort of help that was needed, I'd give my time, I'd go see them straight away. And that's where I went wrong. Okay, there's nothing wrong with being assertive. Whether you're an experienced teacher, a trainee teacher, an early careers teacher, newly qualified, doesn't matter. There's nothing wrong with saying no if what is being asked of you is going to impact on your time to get things done that you need to get done for your own well-being.